Good morning, folks. We're a couple minutes late. We're just going to get started with this morning's meeting of Comox Strathcona Waste Management. I just want to start by acknowledging that we're meeting on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation, and the Comox Strathcona Waste Management, our service area includes the Coast Salish, Kwakwaka'wakw, and Nuu-chah-nulth territories. And with that, we'll begin with approval of the agenda. And I believe Director Vinesh, you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to add Cortez Waste Management Road to the agenda. I have a short verbal report and a motion.
All right, so that will be added to the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda with that addition? So that's moved, that's been seconded. Are there any questions? Anyone opposed? And that carries as amended. Thanks very much, Director Vinesh. And next we'll go to adoption of minutes. Okay, any corrections or additions? Anyone opposed to adoption? And that passes. And we'll start moving into reports. And the first one is Comox Strathcona Waste Management Advisory Committee minutes for November 6th for receipt. Thank you. Any notes or comments on those minutes? All right, anyone opposed to receipt? And that carries. And now report number 2, landfill gas beneficial end use project update. And for this, I'll pass it over to CAO Warren.
Doug.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to the board. Vivian Shaw, our Senior Manager of Comox Strathcona Waste Management Services, will be introducing this report, and we have a couple of guest speakers online as well to support the discussion. So Vivian, over to you.
Thank you so much, James. Through the CAO Chair to the CSWM board, good morning. This report here is to provide an update on the Fortis project to upgrade the landfill gas generated at the Comox Valley Waste Management Center in Cumberland to create new renewable natural gas. We're really thrilled to be able to have Laura Malovanek, the Senior Manager of renewable gas supply. We have Charzad as well on the line. We have Carmen LeBlanc here in the gallery. She's the manager of community and Indigenous relations for Vancouver Island, joining us here today. Before I turn it over to Laura for the presentation, I just want to give a really quick synopsis for this report to provide context for the presentation you'll be seeing. As some of you, as you will remember, the agreement was signed last November, which Laura will detail. Since last November, and Fortis has been undergoing a detailed design. And there's been significant progress through the past year, and the project is now currently at 30% detailed design stage for the significant capital investment. So at this time, Fortis does require an extension to conduct the value engineering exercise. And this is really the last optimal window to make that high impact, low cost modifications to the design to de-risk the remaining 70% of the project. The key driver for this extension is the need to align with the regulatory and financial constraints, specifically related to RNG. The value engineering exercise must ensure that the project is financially viable under the BC Utilities Commission's price cap of approximately $31 per gigajoule for the utility acquisition of RNG. So the extension that is being put forward today for the board consideration is to allow this outstanding work to validate the financial assumptions and guarantee that the project drivers are met within the BCUC framework. So with that, I'll turn it over to Laura. She'll be sharing her screen.
All right, I'd lost the mute button there. I'm not experienced with Zoom.
Are you able to share your screen?
I'm trying.
Okay, we can check.
There we go. Okay, I just had it in a window. Share screen. Okay, does that work? Can you see my screen?
We can indeed, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so I do have just a tiny window of the conference room there that you're in. So if there are any questions, please do just put up a hand signal so that I can pause. I'm happy to take questions at any time or during the end.
Sounds great. Thanks, Laura.
Okay, so I'm first going to go through what we've been spending our time on and what our plan is for the next 8 months. I'm going to talk a little bit about the AAC guidelines that we use to drive our project development, because I know a lot of organizations use a lot of different models, so I want to give context of what we do. I am going to go through the project status currently, and then give an overview of what we've designed and how it's going to work on the landfill site. And then I will briefly talk about local and Indigenous participation, and Carmen may add some comments from the room. So I know this project was started a very long time ago, and the negotiations took a long time. One of the key things that we did in 2023 was to expand our team to be able to resource this project. I was the first person hired by the RNG team as the project manager. We have also been hiring Sharzad, the project engineer. We've hired a project development engineer, asset management engineer. We've just hired an operations manager for the facility. And I'm probably missing a few other people, but what we've been focusing on is really beefing up the team so that we're able to support the project and then ultimately support the facility in execution and in operation. So in 2023, we did a class 4 study, which was mainly focused on the Fortis infrastructure, the pipelines and the station for the interconnect. And the upgrader facility was based on some technologies that were available on the market. But what we found during that study was that until you picked a technology partner, we really couldn't develop the design further because there are so many variables and the process conditions are so different depending on the technology provider you choose to work with. So that class 4 study was completed, but the range of uncertainty was very wide. And so we were not able to make a decision at that point to proceed. In 2024, we signed the BPA and hired more of the people that I was talking about, with the goal of kicking off the class 3 study in 2025. So that's where we are now. In 2024, we had a contracting strategy decision where we decided to go with the construction management at risk strategy. So what that means is that we engage our construction contractor early, and they work with the engineering consultant and our technology provider so that we can do constructability reviews, and they provide input to the site layout so that we're sure that when we actually go to execute this project, to build it, that we aren't surprised by anything that comes up in construction. So that was one of our big ways to de-risk the project. In 2024, we went out to market to sign the construction contractor, the engineering company, and the technology provider so that we could kick off the study in January of 2025. So through 2025, we awarded the contracts at the very beginning. And I think I have a slide coming up talking about who our partners are. So I won't go into a lot of detail on that now. We started with our technology provider developing the process design and equipment sizing. And from there, our engineering consultant was doing the balance of plant work, all the civil design, the foundations, the structure, everything that we needed to tie it in, electrical supply and so on. And then finally, they handed that information over to our construction company, who were able to put together a detailed cost estimate for what the construction would be. We had basically all of that in motion in August. We had all of those parties come out to site to the landfill to take a look so that we could really inform ourselves based on the site conditions to finalize our cost estimates. Where we're at right now is that we are getting all of those final estimates in from all the partners. We're just doing a QA review of Graham's our construction company. We're doing a QA review of their estimate right now. We're starting the contingency analysis and the value engineering. Our plan for 2025 is to continue the value engineering with a goal of having it wrapped up in Q1. At that point, we'll know that the project is or isn't financially viable, and we will make an application to the BCUC for approval of the biogas purchase agreement. And that will also include our Fortis approvals of the project. and then we'll kick off detailed design. And we're optimistic that we should be able to do some early works this year. There are some things that we'd like to do towards the fall, just so that we can prepare so that in 2027 we can start construction really early. That's always a challenge because the birds are out really early too. And so we need to be careful to avoid any conflict with that. We manage that usually by planning in advance. I've already gone through this. This is what our next 7 months looks like. Okay, so just at a very high level, we work under the AAC guidelines. And so we did the class 4 in 2023, which is a project definition of about 15 to 35%. And from there, we've gone into the class 3. So the way this works is that there's a very detailed list of project deliverables and studies that need to be completed. I've just included a snapshot there. And as you progress through each step, all of those deliverables get more and more defined. So the key in the class 3 level is that your process design is finalized, your site layout is finalized, and you have started all of the discipline drawings. So we have started the piping layouts, the electrical single line drawings, the foundation design. All of those are started and at the review stage. We expect at this point, like it's always hard to put a number, but we believe we're 30% through the design. Okay, so that's where we are. Our key contractors are our biogas upgrading supplier, the technology provider, TerraVest Renewables. TerraVest is an Alberta-based company. They do their own manufacturing and have a lot of experience in the Canadian market and with Canadian standards. They are partnering with Quadrogen, who is the PSA vendor. This is the specialist technology that removes the nitrogen from the gas. And the Quadrogen technology is a very common technology used. We're actually using Quadrogen PSA at our City of Vancouver project, which is just finished commissioning. So we're really pleased to be working with them. There are advantages for us because we're familiar with their technology. And so we're going to have some synergies by having plants with the same technologies. Our balance of plant designer is a partnership actually between All North Consultants and Genmar. All North has offices in Vancouver and as well in Nanaimo. So that's a big advantage for us that the consultant can meet with us in our offices and they can also get to site really quickly if they need to. Genmar has a lot of history with Fortis in our renewable gas space and know how we work. We've chosen Graham as our construction management company. Graham, they're very well known, but the reason we chose them is that they were the construction company for our City of Vancouver project. So they have recent experience installing this equipment and working with Fortis. We have started engagement with stakeholders and rights holders. We have completed the environmental and archaeological investigations. These were significant on the pipeline route to get the gas to our network. And that completing those investigations, we did field investigations, soil testing, and that was really significant to de-risk the project. We have gone through a permit identification process as well, so that we know when all of our permits need to be applied for. All right. As I said on the AAC slide, we're at 30% and we have started all of our drawings. The discipline drawings are up to the review stage. One of the things I didn't mention before is that we have done a number of reviews. So we have done process safety reviews where we go through the design in detail and identify process risks that could cause significant incidents, and we come up with solutions for them. We've also had project risk assessments where we identify things that could cause problems for the project in execution. And we've had constructability reviews, which were really significant. The site is congested. And so we needed to be sure that when we did the layout, that we were considering, access for cranes and access for trucks and vehicles on our site, and as well to make sure that we were able to install cranes and have access for the equipment to maintain it, and also maintain access to the CVRD equipment for their maintenance. We do have very detailed bottom-up cost estimates. We have quotes for all the major equipment. Yeah, there's quite a lot done already. Just to quickly go over the facility ownership. So CVRD is responsible for the gas collection system through the landfill, and then they provide the gas to us. We check that the gas is within the specifications that we can handle in our process facility. And then we go through a purification, removing process contaminants. And then we do another check to be sure that we have met our pipeline standards. And then we put the gas into our system. And there's always a bit of a tail gas stream that goes to a flare on site, a thermal oxidizer is what we call it. So it's not a visible flare. Anyway, so this is what our facility is. Can you see my mouse?
Sorry, yes.
Yes, okay. I'm going to try and make this a bit bigger so that I can read the screen. I just want to go quickly over what our facility looks like. And, you know, I'm of an age here, you can see me looking down the bottom of my glasses to try and see the different spots on the screen. So we start over here. These gray buildings are the existing CVRD biogas facility. It comes into our plant and it goes through a chiller, which drops out the water at the first stage of the plant. And then we've got this building here, which has our blowers and compressors that drive the gas through our system. The first step that it goes to is the hydrogen sulfide removal process, H2S. This facility, or this unit, has a consumable media that takes the hydrogen sulfide into a solid state. And about once a year, we'll need to remove the media. It's safe to landfill. And that is the first step because of the dangers associated with H2S. So we want to make sure we get the H2S out of the facility right away to minimize risk to the rest of the facility. The next step here is the VOC removal. So those are volatile organic compounds, and mostly they're what happens to soap in a landfill. So these compounds are things that, again, have some hazards, but they really cause contamination and can gum up the rest of our facility. So it's critical that we get those out next. Then we go to this unit here, which has the main compressors that put it through the pressure swing absorption. These two units are the PSAs, the pressure swing absorption units. And it's a complicated technology that basically has 8 vessels that operate in series. And we put the gas that is a blend of methane, CO2, and nitrogen. And all of those gases move through the vessels at different speeds. And so that's what we use. We use the different speeds of the vessels to be able to separate the methane, the nitrogen, and the CO2. From in that vessel, that's where we get our purified methane to go into the pipeline. There is an economic driver that, like, you need to figure out where the best spot is to stop your PSA. And so we stop when we're about 90% pure methane. So there's a trace amount of nitrogen or CO2 in the methane that goes to our pipeline. That also means that there's about 5% of methane left in the tail gas. And that tail gas goes over here to our thermal oxidizer. From there, we go back to the compressor, and then it goes into our injection station over here. The injection station does a quality check on the gas to be sure we're meeting the pipeline specifications. And it also adds the odorant so that the gas can be detected should there be a leak. Other key things that I want to put out on the site, over here is our BC Hydro connection and the CVRD Hydro connection. There's going to be some changes to that just to allow space for our plant. This building here is our E-house, which will have our MCC and all of our control equipment. And over here, just next to it, we have the instrument air compressor. We've got a small washroom trailer for the operations team who are going to be on site, and we have an office for them. So you can see that most of the site is fairly congested. And then there's this big space around the thermal oxidizer. That's because there are setback requirements because it is a hot flammable space. So we need to be sure that there's not anything accidentally going into that area. All right, Indigenous participation. Carmen is in the room. Do you want to make some comments, Carmen?
Carmen, do you want to come to the microphone, perhaps beside Vivian? Thank you. And that mic is live.
Okay, are we good? I think I'll just share that we have socialized the project with Comox First Nation quite some time ago through the years, and connected with your team here at the CVRD, and together we'll continue to work through the various stages of the project as they come to fruition. So working with the nation and making sure that we're communicating completely. And then obviously the pipeline connection of the project will require engagement with community members.
Okay, great. Thanks very much.
Right. And that is the end. I will stop sharing, and we're happy to take any questions.
All right, I'm going to open it up to the board for questions. Just taking a look, and I see Alternate Director Wells.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks for this update. As you, I think, led off with it, it has been a long time coming. I recall this discussion about 10 or 11 years ago, I think. So it's great to see some some functional stuff where you can actually see things. So I really appreciate the diagrams and explanations. I sort of had two questions that I think are relatively unrelated. And one was on the amount, like if you were to, use, your average household kind of statistics, what the expected average amount of gas RNG is going to likely be created per year. And then kind of related to it in my mind, but I'm having a hard time even relating to my own mind, is people who are paying for the RNG, like how do they get that versus regular natural gas, or is it like, so there's those two things that are kind of in my mind.
So the first one is that we expect this plant to produce about 100 terajoules a year. And I hate to say this, but I have no idea how many houses that heats. I'm in the process, the project space. I'm not in a customer facing role. So that's the part of the question. I can tell you how much the plant is going to produce, but I can't really tell you how much it's useful for. The second part of your question around how we pay for it. So under these projects are sanctioned under the greenhouse gas regulation. And so every year there's a cap. And actually the cap currently is $36 a gigajoule. And that cap is based on the electricity price in BC. So the government has said that it makes sense for us to create RNG if we can do it for the same energy cost as electricity. And so the gas that we sell on our system costs about $2.50, but that changes with the market. And the cost for RNG, the premium for RNG, is about $7.50 for the gas. And so we have some voluntary customers who have signed up to pay a premium for their gas. We don't charge them the entire $7.50 premium for the gas. And I do want to say that all of my numbers here are approximate. I do periodically look them up on our webpage to have the numbers, but they are my memory of what I looked up last time I was getting these numbers. So what happens is that the capital cost of building these assets goes into our rate base, and the cost is recovered from our ratepayers, the same way the cost of any other asset is. And we've got a portfolio of RNG, right? So there's a number of different contracts, and they all have slightly different prices. We are blending a couple percentage into the general gas stream, so everybody gets. And I should be also really clear. When I talk about blending gas in, what people are getting is the environmental attributes, the credits. They don't get the physical molecules, right? So everybody gets a portion of the credits. So we're blending in about 2%, 3% into our regular gas. So all of our customers get some of those credits. And they don't pay for that additional amount. That is, that's covered by our entire rate base. And that percentage will increase year over year in such a way to minimize the impact. Thank you. So that blend is done to minimize the rate impact to our ratepayers over the lifespan of the asset. That was a lot of information. I don't know if it answered or if it was too much.
I think there's going to be a follow-up.
Okay.
I can also just speak to the number of households that sorry, this is Chris Feeney, Business Development Manager for RNG for Fortis. So approximately 80 gigajoules per year is consumed per household. And so that 100,000 would translate to, 1,000 to 1,250 homes per year.
Thanks very much. I really appreciate the clarity on that. And thanks, Troy, for throwing the comment in as well. Thank you.
And if I'd known Chris was on the call, he's by far the better person to have answered that question that I answered for you.
All right. Well, great to get so many good answers. And that's roughly what ChatGPT told me as well. So we're all in the same ballpark. And as a customer of the 100% renewable gas at home, it's a good way of delivering those environmental benefits. I'll go next to Director Grieve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much for the presentation. Yeah, the report actually said between 600 and 1,100 homes annually. So it's right in the first page of the report. But my question is, at one time, when this was all in its infancy, about 10 years ago, there was supposedly a mandate by the province that of 10% of renewable gas in the gas stream. It looks like you're heading towards it, but the sources were identified as landfills, obviously, liquid waste management, agriculture, and wood waste. And I wonder if Fortis has any inside information on that, because I read quite a while ago now that there was some talk of processing up at Campbell River at the old pulp mill site to have some anaerobic digester that would turn out methane from the incredible amount of wood waste that the logging companies leave up in the forest, that, as we know, turns into methane, and we have absolutely no control over it, and it dwarfs the amount of methane that we produce here at our landfill or agricultural. So is there, and I do realize that private forest land is a sacred cow we can't talk about, but is there any progress on that front? Because I do think that I'm heartened by the fact that we are moving towards renewable energy. It's the only way to go, and yet we're wasting it in our forests. Can you answer that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that one. So with wood waste, currently the technology needs to come a little bit further to process the wood waste in the gasification process. The other moving piece to it, yes, the technology needs to come a little bit further along to make sure we can remain under the cap that Laura was mentioning earlier, the price cap on dollars per GJ. The other portion of it is currently it really needs to be quite a large facility in order to remain under that cap. So the cost of the facility would be quite considerable in the 500 million and up. So again, as that technology develops, the capital cost will be able to come down, keeping that dollars per GJ at an affordable rate for our customers. There is currently a project in the interior, which we've had a biomethane purchase agreement with, and it's been moving along quite slowly. Again, the technology needing to develop, but as that, we're keeping a close eye as that project moves along, whereas these smaller regional pulp mills and wood waste processing can utilize that technology. So we'll be able to keep an eye on that and provide updates as we move.
All right, thanks, Chris. That was a little wide of the mark in terms of the report, but I really appreciate you being able to bring that instantly to the table in terms of the question Director Grieve was asking. I don't see any further questions in the room or online, so we're on receipt at this point. Is there anyone opposed to receipt? And that carries. And if someone cares to move the recommendation, that's moved and seconded. Any discussion on the recommendation? Anyone opposed to the recommendation? Great, and that carries. And next, we'll move on to the CSWM 2026 to 2030 proposed financial plan.
All right. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you. We'll jump off the phone now.
Yeah, thanks so much. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
All right, and that's for receipt. I've heard it moved and seconded, and I'll pass this over to James Warren.
Thank you again. And Kelly Broughton, our manager of financial planning, and Vivian Shaw again will be introducing the proposed financial plan for the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service. I'm not sure whether it'll be Kelly or Vivian starting us off. Kelly. Okay. Kelly, just take a moment to get herself ready, and then we'll be ready to go.
Good morning, and thank you, James, and through the CAO to the directors. Vivian and I will be presenting the 2026 to 2030 proposed financial plan for the Comox Strathcona Waste Management. This encompasses the 5-year operating budget and the 10-year capital plan. The presentation summarizes the operational needs, long-term capital requirements, and the financial strategy to support safe, compliant, and sustainable waste services across the region. The plan includes taxation, tipping fees, debt, and the reserve positions. I will now turn the presentation over to Vivian.
Thank you. This slide here is just to set the stage for the rest of the presentation. I'm sure all of you are aware by now what it is that we do. The service here was established back in 1997 by bylaw 1822. The service was named Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service. And of course, this service here provides services to both the Strathcona Regional District and the Comox Valley Regional District. This slide here shows the extent of our service area. As you can see, it's a vast geography that spans quite a number of areas. It includes 8 municipalities and 8 electoral areas. And as you can see, just based on the geography, it does present some challenges in terms of the service delivery. This service is governed by the CSWM board, and which is essentially the 2 regional districts that come together to manage this large service. We handle about 65,000 tons of waste annually and oversee a number of diversion and education programs. Responsible for the 2 regional waste management centers that serve the Comox Valley and Campbell River, as well as a number of transfer stations that handle waste and recycling for the electoral areas. Just to give you a context of how big this area is, it's roughly about 22,000 square kilometers or 2.2 million hectares. And it spans from Cayucit, Nika on the west coast of Vancouver Island, across to the islands of Cortez, Quadra, then Denman, Hornby, and the Discovery Islands, and into the portion of the mainland over in Powell River. But we don't have any services over there, so I don't want to take credit for it. The service here, we basically consist of about 15 main components. We have the single regional landfill located here in Cumberland. There's 2 large waste management centers, Cumberland and Campbell River, the regional organics facility located in Campbell River, 3 small historic landfill that continues to operate but are slated for closure, 2 small recycling depots on Quadra and Oyster River that are in the works of being expanded to provide greater improved service. And then finally 6 recycling depots and transfer stations in Hornby, Cortez, Gold River, Tassus, Savalas, and Sayward. On the right-hand side of the slide, it's a bit small, but you'll see that we have listed a number of lines of business. In the future, we are working towards developing better reporting so that we can show the magnitude of costs associated with each of these key lines of business. In addition to what's showing here, the service is responsible for the construction and operation and maintenance of our regional landfill in Cumberland, which has the leachate treatment and the gas collection, maintenance and gas collection in Campbell River, the closed landfill. maintenance and annual compliance reporting requirements for the 5 historic landfills, closure costs, environmental liability for those historic landfills, the various diversion programs, including drywall, wood waste, recycle BC depots, and HHW. And then lastly, there is the unified transportation agreements for all communities with transfer stations across our service area. Just so that you can get a context of how we're doing, how we stack against the rest of the province. Recognize that this data is a bit old. This is the last available data from the province in terms of the disposal rate across the region. So you've seen this slide before. We're kind of right in the middle of the pack, around 517 kilograms per person per year. We are slightly higher than the BC average. So yeah, we're middle of the pack, but there is still work to do. As you have seen throughout the solid waste management plan, the provincial target is 350. So there is a lot of work that we are needing to do to get us closer to that target. There's a lot of information on the slide, so I won't go into every last detail, but there are some key highlights. There are, as you can appreciate, significant challenges facing the service. There's a lot of opportunities to continue to reduce waste going to the landfill as detailed out in the solid waste management plan. So that work is ongoing, and we're excited to be able to bring that forward to you in the new year. Our traffic counts are higher than ever. This increases in staffing requirements is really just necessary to get folks in and out of the landfill safely. This increases wait times at the transfer stations at the waste management facilities, and that is sometimes a source of frustrations for both the general public and the businesses that visit our facilities. The next piece is around the regulatory requirements. This is continuing and it continues to drive up costs for our service. There's, as we look towards the future, there is climate events that we need to be prepared for. So from a disaster preparedness standpoint, we are working towards that so that we have a plan in place. So in the event of a disaster, which can place an immense strain on our landfill, we are working towards putting together a comprehensive plan to support that. And then, as you know, like these are just the main hurdles that we are continuing to face, traffic, funding, compliance pressures, but there are also a number of opportunities that we are working towards. So education enforcement, we recognize that it can always be improved. So there is work in that area. There's emerging strategies for higher waste compaction for saving landfill airspace. So we have, and thank you for the approval of the shredder last year. The landfill gas wells that can be more effective with the auto tuning technologies and service levels to be optimized. So with the solid waste management plan, this is going to be vital to be able to provide that framework to be able to address all of these systematically. This is our show and tell slide for the 2025 accomplishments. I just wanted to highlight so these some of the pictures. So this is our second full year of organics operations. I think we provided a tour for the board back in, I want to say 2023, following back in June 2023. So we're in our second year of operations and it's going really well. The solid waste management plan, we're at step 3B of the process. So this is a picture of our community educator, Lindsay Eason, with a member of your community, just really detailing out the strategies to be able to support the work that we've identified in the previous slide. This is the picture of the Oyster River property that we had acquired, and we're working towards to expand that. To be able to expand that into a full service depot. This one is Director Molini's favorite, the Quadra Island Depot construction. So the foundation has been poured, it's being cared right now. The building is being landed the first week of December. So that is that. And you just saw the walkthrough of the facility with the Fortis project. This is a Fortis project, but there is obviously work on our side to be able to support that work. So this has been a really great, we're really excited to be able to show the progress with this class 3 estimate nearing completion. Next 3 slide. This is the leachate treatment plant takedown that we had back in July of this year. This is a critical piece, very expensive critical piece of infrastructure for our service in managing the leachate that flows out of our regional landfill. So this is the first opportunity that we've had to take down the facility for the first time in 7 years. And as you can see, it was quite yucky. We are doing better in terms of our asset management renewal. So this is the first step. And then, oh, sorry, there was one more. You can't really take a picture of it. It's our scale software implementation. So for better data tracking. So that was also a really big endeavor for our service. I'll take the question from Director Grieve.
You're okay to take questions as we go through? Okay, great. Yeah, and we'll go to Director Grieve.
Now, Vivian, you know I'm going to ask this question. What's the timeline of opening up the facility in Oyster River? What are we looking at, 2 years to get it operational about that?
We have plans. So there are some items that we're working through with the current facility, and we are aiming to be able to start accessing the facility. With the building early spring. That is the intent, but until we get a more definitive timeline, we can share that with the board. But that is the general aim, so that we can start at least the initial work.
Director Grieve, you had a follow-up?
Just a follow-up. So when do we need to sharpen up those ribbon cutting scissors?
To be continued.
I think our next questioner actually owns a pair, so I'll just pass it over to him.
I'd be happy to loan them out for sure. It'd be very exciting. And I may have missed this, but and this is just kind of comparing this from a previous update where we saw some holes and other things. I think that might have been in the organics facility that the equipment had put in. And just when you're talking about that asset management and coming up with new policies, I know it's a bit of out of left field, but just wondering how, I guess it was like up high, the walls are starting to come apart. And so, yeah, I don't know if that rings a bell with anybody, but just wondering how that's going.
I think, Director, you're speaking to the bunkers that are part of the Skyrocket processing, which is our organics biosolids coming from the sewage treatment facility. That isn't something that is a part of the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service. So you would have seen it at the Sewage Commission.
Different place. My apologies.
Not at all. I think it is all very relevant in the sense of asset management and being able to understand the condition of our facilities and be able to plan for maintenance and replacement and upgrades. I can get you more specific updates on that particular question around the status of the bunkers. Probably not right now, but
no, it's all good. And
that update.
My brain is cross-pollinating those things. I was an alternate there, so but I just remembered in my mind they were kind of connected. So
same location, yeah, and sharing some of those resources for those reasons. But yeah, different service.
Okay, thanks so much.
You had me worried there for a second. But to your point, asset management is very important, as evidenced by these pictures here. It is something that we are working to improve upon so that we can have that continuity of service and not to come to the board with urgent asks. So these are the strategic priorities and initiatives coming out of the current ministry-approved solid waste management plan from 2012. It's taken a bit of time, but we've come a long ways since towards achieving these, especially the second and third items. Specifically regarding the greenhouse gas emissions, we've implemented the organics, we've closed and capped our 2 large historic landfills, and we're collecting and flaring landfill gas, and we're progressing nicely with the Fortis project, as you just saw with Laura's presentation earlier. We're continuing to progressively close our active landfill, the new engineered landfill. We are almost completed with the interim closure for cell 1 as of this week. And we're installing new wells as we continue to fill cell 2. The next set of lines, I think, are in January. So we are, progressing nicely with that work. And working with our partners for the beneficial use of landfill gas. On number 3, we've eliminated our environmental impact to groundwater with the capping of the landfills, and we have installed a full leachate capture and treatment for our active landfill. In terms of minimization of waste, we still have a long ways to go on this priority, but as you can see through the work that Sarah has been leading with the solid waste management plan, this is a major focus of that current planning work. And the last 2, with the fiscal sustainability framework and strategy, as presented by Lucy and Kelly over the last few meetings. This is really important to be able to stabilize our funding for the service over the long term. And we've gone through the draft principles at the last meeting, and staff will now take that back and use as the core principles that will guide this framework. And with that marching order, we'll continue on with the policy and strategy development, which will set us up for a more stable financial outlook for the service. With asset management plan, just another plug, this is about really protecting our massive infrastructure that we have across our service. The asset management program is well underway. We have officially adopted the asset management policy, which formalizes our approach. And this roadmap will give us that clear and actionable plan to managing our and replacing our critical assets. In terms of work priorities for 2026, there are items that are included in the proposed budget as you have in front of you. The first item was actually supposed to be continuing the work on our solid waste management plan. It's again we've developed the short list, and it's gone out to the public consultation, and the what we heard report will be coming in January. This is based off the consultation from the summer, and also the various presentations that we've provided to councils across our service area. With the operations, we're going to be working to shred waste and continue to work on that compaction density with the goal of saving airspace. This is not in any particular order. There's another slide here. And implementing our new scale software in early 2020. Sorry, we've already implemented our scale software, and we're continuing to improve that data collection and in support of our diversion programs. Planning for disaster. Every year there are disasters, events that are happening, and it does result in a vast amount of waste that needs to be managed. So these events can have significant impacts on our landfill airspace, and it's a valuable asset that we need to secure. So being prepared is some of the work that we're planning on doing. Optimizing our landfill gas wells, finalizing the Quadra Depot, expanding the organics to IC&I multifamily, and constructing the office facility for the rest of us staff so that we have, our facility has just really evolved over time, and we're not able to accommodate the team. So it's really about improving efficiencies and effectiveness of our group. The proposed budget here includes the following human resource additions. There is a new 0.3 of a position that's going to be dedicated to the asset management work. So this position is intended to advance the asset management practices, and it's a specialist that's going to be specifically charged with the development of long and short-term asset renewal work. There is also the 1.5 increase for waste management attendance. And this is to facilitate the customer counts, reduce contamination, reduce those risk and health, health and safety risk at the landfill that we are experiencing at the facility. Got arts and crafts digitally, got fun with this. So we have, I don't know if you can see, but there's little people at the bottom, and that represents where we need personnel to be able to support the operations. At the scale house, we do require 2 people to be able to process people in and out in an efficient and timely manner. And also, again, it is a critical operation in that it is the first touch point. It is there for screening so that we can ensure things like asbestos and any hazardous type materials are properly identified, and so that we can manage those and protect the safety of our workers. And then again, obviously with the diversion components, it is, there is a big spiel that needs to happen. So there are 2 folks in there to be able to process customers in a time and efficient manner. In that yellow area, that's it's the bin wall, dry wall area. And that's to provide that oversight so that when people are depositing their waste, they are being doing so in accordance to our bylaw and just our general site rules. There is in that gray area at the very bottom, that's our that represents our recycling area. So again, that is really important to have that oversight. There are a lot of questions, and it really is that a source for education for folks that are using the facility. And then there is a little guy in the tractor, that purple zone. And this is the person that is driving the little side-by-side and small mini loader around so that they're moving materials and processing it, getting it ready for preparing it for processing for transport. Getting into the good stuff. This is the overall expenses. This slide here shows the proposed changes in expenses for the overall service, including all the sub-functions. This service has 4 distinct functions. So 391 is the landfilling operations and maintenance. So this is represents the bulk of the service. 392 is our landfill gas sub-function. 393 our leachate, and 394 is our organics. In the 2026 proposed budget that's before you, it's tallying up to 20.77 million, which represents a 0.8% increase over 2025. The major changes include personnel increase of 348,000, materials and supplies and utility increases of 140,000, reduction of contracted services to the tune of 225,000, reduction in reserve contributions of 500,000, and decrease in minor capital. The overall increase worked out to 158,000, which is reflective of the inflationary pressures and the staffing needs and the refined cost allocations. And I'll go into a bit more detail over the next 4 slides. So this is a look right into the 391 budget. Some of the key items that you'll see is a decrease in our professional fees. We are doing some planning. So there are some work that have already been completed and they aren't done on an annual basis. So those have been taken off of the professional fees. And there are work that have been completed, and we've added some that are ongoing. With the minor capital, some key highlights are some of the paving work that needs to be done at the Bevan landfill so that we can provide, to be able to just ensure that we are keeping up with our assets, railings, things of that nature. And then going into the post-closure landfill, sorry, this is the gas. This is fairly stable. We are wanting to really make sure that we're improving on our staff training. So there is some minor costs associated with that training component so that we're able to better manage the facility, optimize our wells so that we can improve on our collection. And then on the leachate side, we are seeing a bit of an increase on this. As I mentioned in the previous slide, the plant has been operational for about 7 years. It is a facility that is, again, really critical to the operations, and we do need to make sure that we're maintaining it. There are a lot of work that's long overdue. So we are basically doing a bit of a catch up. So there is a pretty big, notable jump in terms of our minor capital to be able to get us kind of back to where we need to be to ensure that we have that continuity of service. And then on the organics side, there is, again, some notable increases. This is related to just things that we need to rent, things that we need to do to manage the contamination. So this includes the screener rental, that's adding $35,000 with the fuel and lubricant for our shredder, which is quite thirsty. We just have better operating data to work off of, so you'll see an increase in that. And then again, to deal with the contamination issue, the contracted costs for this service has gone up about 60,000, and that's to provide an additional body to be able to pick out the contaminants. And the resulting material that does need to be trucked back, this also added another 80,000 to the tipping fee line. And then on the revenue side, the total sales for the service amounted to about 14.2 million, and this relates to tipping fees that have increased by 1.9 million, largely due to the expected increase in volume and as well as growth. And the proposed increases to the tipping fees in the bylaw that was presented at the last meeting, it's amounting to roughly about 296,000 of this 1.9 million total. The slide shows that the required revenue for 2026 as it compares to the approved revenue in 2025. This slide is showing you the projections, that longer term look at the service over the next 5 years of expenses. The large bar that you see is increasing from year to year, with the bulk of the increases associated with the higher recommended reserve contributions. And this is as required to avoid future debt. The next part of the, maybe I'll take a pause here. This is a lengthy presentation. If there are any questions.
I don't see any in the room, and Lisa, none online.
Okay.
So please go ahead. Thanks, Vivian.
Okay, so thank you. For the next set of slides, you've already seen this. This is the capital planning presentation, but I'll just go through it again just as a quick refresher. This pie chart here shows that $41.2 million it shows how that $41.2 million is distributed across the various categories. About 16.7 million or 40% is dedicated to the new engineered landfill at the Cumberland facility. 11.2 millions, roughly about a quarter, supports the closure activities, and then 9.7 million is for the life cycle and a renewal of our to maintain our existing assets. 3.6 million represents the new asset investments that have been identified in the capital plan. And this really does reflect the importance of maintaining those essential services to prepare for our future growth. Over the 10-year horizon from 2026 to 2035, we're projecting a total capital of 41.2 million, with the largest investments occurring in 2035 with construction of cell 3 at the Cumberland facility. And other key categories, I've gone through that. The next two slides here shows the detail of our planned capital spending over the next few years. Of note, again, is the closure of Tassa, Sabalas, and Gold River, along with the associated transfer stations for the replacement of those facilities. There is also machineries that's taking up a large part of this budget. This is the detail for the capital pieces that we just talked about. Yeah, this is again the detail for the bigger capital projects that we have already chatted through. And then lastly, for me, this is just again a snapshot of the fill rate for cell 2. Cell 2 has a starting landfill capacity airspace of 1.37 million cubic meters of airspace. And based on the current compaction and diversion population growth assumptions, cell 3 will be required to be operational by 2036. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kelly to get into the good stuff.
Thank you, Vivian. I will touch briefly on the capital funding, debt reserves, and reserve balances, but there hasn't been any significant changes since the capital presentation you saw a couple of weeks ago. So this is our fiscal framework development. Lucy also presented that in September as well as in October at the last meeting. So this is just our little house model that shows the foundation, which relates to the administrative functions, procedures, and the clearly defined standards and guidelines. The supporting pillars on the side are a combination of the internal controls for things such as procurement, investment, risk management, and long-term financial planning, the revenue and rate setting, debt management, and reserve management, and the external legislative requirements, such as the solid waste management plan and the annual audit that we undergo. Together, these elements support the overall strategy. The guiding principles were set were set at the last meeting, and they were affordable, predictive, and progressive, accountable, transparent, and fair and equitable. So the policy work will continue over the next year, and in the center there you can see some of the policy work that is proposed to be brought forward in 2026. These draft policies will be brought to the board for discussion, and eventually, hopefully by the fall, we'll start to have some of those policies approved so that we can start to integrate them into the 2027 financial planning policy. So the most comprehensive and complex policy area right now is the tipping fee policy. The analysis has begun, but it will continue throughout 2026 through the spring of 2026. And we're expecting to bring a draft policy in the fall of 2026. As mentioned, the other policies that will be brought forward are for reserve management, debt management, fiscal sustainability measures such as revenue, the revenue mix, the foundation for that, and other internal controls that we're going to be bringing forward in asset management. So the next few slides are ones that we saw in October. There hasn't been any change in them. The capital spending the capital projects are fully funded with the exception of one through transfers from reserve. In 2035, the construction for cell 3 gets underway, and that is planned with a mixture of debt and reserve fundings. The debt for the service remains relatively stable. Currently, we have the 3 historical long-term debentures, which together they are combined with an annual debt servicing cost of just over 2.8 million, which represents about 14.25% of the total 2026 proposed operating revenue. They're projected to remain stable through 2020 through 2035. And then with the advent of the new cell, we're going to be projecting about 7.65 in new debt. So that new debt will add approximately 605,000 to the annual debt servicing requirements for a term of 20 years. For the first 5 years, from 2035 to 2040, the total debt servicing expense is estimated to be about 16.5% of the total operating budget. And that ratio will gradually decrease as the first of the existing loans is paid off in 2040, followed by the second in 2041 and the third one in 2043. As mentioned earlier, the coming debt policy work will help to define sustainable debt maximum targets, both at the service level and at the individual project level. The reserve balances. So the waste management, Comox Strathcona Waste Management has 3 established reserves: an operational reserve that can be used for any expenditure, a capital works reserve that can only be used to fund capital projects relating to new assets or the life cycling and renewal of existing assets, and finally a closure reserve. And that reserve is used to fund activities relating to the closure. All 3 reserve balances remain quite low through the course of the proposed plan. The reserve policies will help to define a clear funding strategy and minimum balances to achieve fiscal sustainability and stability. The reserves are a critical tool that can help smooth rate increases, reduce volatility, and improve sustainable asset management practices. Although the reserve policy has not been developed or brought before the board, the best practices recommend that the optimum level for an operational reserve should have a minimum of 3 months of operational working capital available. For the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service, that minimum should be set at 3.7 million. This minimum reduces the risk of any cash flow issues that could result from sudden drops in revenue, such as reduced tipping fee revenue or a major insurance claim or legal issue. Operating reserves are readily accessed and can be repurposed as necessary. And this is just the last 5 years of that reserve. The capital works reserves. These reserves are specific to the purchase of physical assets or construction of future infrastructure and asset management, including the renewal and replacement of assets. They are established through a bylaw for a specific purpose and cannot be repurposed like an operating reserve can be. Reserve contributions to this reserve have been incorporated at a minimum level necessary to fund the proposed capital plan while staying within the current financial planning policy. The proposed 10-year capital plan transfers into and out of the reserve can be supported. However, the ending 2035 balance is projected to be less than $3 million, which for a service of this size with many capital assets is less than optimal. The landfill closure reserve is projected to keep up with the planned closure activities over the next 10 years. This reserve, like others, needs to have some additional attention, however. As of December 24th, the landfill closure and post-closure costs, which are now classified under the new ARO standards, are estimated at $19.9 million, with an annual accretion expense of just over $800,000. Sorry. So as we move into the total tax requisition by participant, so the tax requisition is proposed to remain at the 2025 level of 5.5 million, which equates to about 11 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. And this chart just details what the area or municipality as a whole would be their proportional share of that 5.5 million. This is based on the 2025 revised roll, which will be updated in 2026 when we receive the new assessed values from BC Assessment. So this chart here is the tax implication to a typical household at the 5.5 million, and it's listed by, this one here shows the electoral areas for both the SRD and the CVRD. and this one is for the municipal partners. The tax, if we took an average across the entire service for a residence that was assessed at $581,000, they will pay approximately $64. So this is the recommendation that the proposed 2026 to 2030 financial plan for Service 391, Comox Strathcona Waste Management, be approved. And staff will return on January 8th to that meeting with the finalized year-end budget figures and to present the recommended budget. Thank you, and staff are here to answer your questions.
All right, thanks Kelly and Vivian. And I'm going to take this couple of questions online, and maybe we'll start with Director Banesh.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much for the presentation. I feel really well informed. I'm, feel really confident about what we're doing here, and pumped to be part of this board that's making these moves. It sounded to me from the report that we're keeping tax requisition at 5.5 million per year, even with increased amounts into the reserve. So I just wanted to confirm that.
So the reserves have been balanced out through the tipping fee. I think we heard the message that the board would prefer that tipping fees be balanced. That the users of the system are paying more of the proportional share than tipping fees, or than the requisition. And the requisition at 5.5 million is basically covering the debt servicing and a portion of the reserve, but not all of it.
Okay, but our plan right now is to keep tax requisition flat for the next 5 years.
Yes. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is that it, Director Banesh?
Yes, thanks so much.
Okay, perfect. Next, Director Arbor, please.
Yeah, thanks. And that was a very nice, comprehensive presentation. So well done. And I guess my question relates to, by the way, you had a really beautiful graph of our site. Not a graph, but a picture. I don't know who drew that online with of our site in Cumberland with the little trees and everything. That was pretty cool. But that made me think about the longer term future. We have cell 1, cell 2, but I'm just wondering, I don't believe our board has a plan for, cell 3, 4, 5, 6 in the long term, including what seems to be a lack of space with the property we currently have. So the reason I'm raising that is, of course, I love a 0.8% increased budget, but I'm just wondering at what point do we start to build some reserves for future cells? Because cell 2, I believe, will be done within the next 10 years or something like that. So I'm just wondering at what point this board should consider that, potentially property acquisition or planning for future cells.
I think, thanks for the question, Director. And I think that it would be helpful to hear from Vivian with respect to cell 3 and that longer term plan. That might address some of your interests there. And then if there's further discussion about longer term strategy, we can certainly entertain that as well. But Vivian, are you able to describe the the plans for cell 3 and then also going beyond cell 3?
Thank you so much for the question. As you're right, the current cell, which we refer to as cell 2, has a capacity for another roughly about 10 years.
Sorry, Vivian, to cut in. Lisa, do you mind going to slide 12 of the PowerPoint? Or sorry, Antoinette, if you can go to slide 12 of the PowerPoint, just so we're all looking at the same information here.
In the absence of a teenager, it's taking a second to do this.
I had it working there for a second. Is this one?
Okay, well done, James. Thank you.
I just want to
There we
say
go.
that this is the product of our last co-op student. I don't want to take credit for this.
Another teenager.
Yeah. So shout out to Ayla. Yeah, cell 2, that's where we're at. We've interim closed cell 1, where you've hit the design height for that. So the interim closure will be completed, actually, I think is roughly this week. So we've been filling in exclusively in cell 2, which will take us to 2035 ish, give or take. And we are permitted for cell 3 under our current solid waste management plan that was approved back in the 2012 plan that was approved in 2013. There is design for really broad design consideration for 4, 5, and 6, and that is lateral expansion down to the south. We are limited in terms of where we can go to the north, given the 500-meter buffer around the landfill. There is a food processing facility to the north of us in the Bevan Industrial Lands area. So we are capped at where we can go to the north. But we can expand down to the south. In 2021, the previous board approved a property acquisition so that we do have properties to the north and to the south, and that is going to be taken into consideration as we work to improve, to do the design and geotechnical work to explore what that's going to look like. It will be contemplated within the current solid waste management plan renewal work that will be coming before you next spring for consideration. And that is, again, the lateral expansion to the south. In terms of funding, can I turn it over to you? Where the future is?
I
Yeah.
think maybe just Director Robert, does that address your questions
Yeah,
around
actually it does. I'd forgotten we'd bought that property to the south, and hearing that cell 4, 5, 6, that we do have room. Yeah, that's a huge comfort. So I'm very comfortable with the answer provided.
And I
Great.
I just
Thanks.
want to also highlight, it's not lost on us that there is a gaping hole in between, like a corridor between our old landfill, the Pigeon Lake landfill to the left, and where we are. I just want to highlight that is a fault line right down there, so we can't bridge the two together.
All right, thanks very much, Vivian. And seeing nothing in the room, we'll go to the next online. That's Director McCollum. You're muted.
Sorry, I'm on an iPad and the controls are harder to get to for unmuting. Yeah, I had a question just around the Capital Works Reserve. In the presentation, staff rightly pointed out that it's less than what is optimal. And I guess my question around that is, like, how far off of what we would consider like a more comfortable reserve balance or closer to optimal are we? Yeah, and then the second part of my question is, last year, the last budget cycle, the board made the determination that we did not want to increasingly rely on taxation and that we wanted to concentrate on revenues from tipping fees and services. And then simultaneously, we delayed implementing those increased fees. So I'm just wondering how that impacted our reserves and whether or not we're in a better spot or worse spot than what we expected when we did this process last year. And additionally, whether or not the variance in the next staff report is included in these numbers at this point, or if those will get added in the next part of this process.
I'll start with your last part first. So any of the surplus variances have not been incorporated into this budget. Anything from 2025, any of the work in progress or capital projects that are to be carried over, or surplus projections are not included in this. This budget deals with 2026 only, but the recommended budget will incorporate those into it. As far as where the reserve is at this point compared to last year, I think we're still pretty much in the same position. The reserve is underfunded. The service has a large capital component to it that it's very cyclical as well. So there can be periods where there's, as we see in the plan right now, where there's very small investments needed throughout the years. And then there's, some major life cycling that happens in it. I think overall the average is just over $2 million a year for it. As we develop the reserve policies, that's something that we will be looking at. What exactly should that optimal balance should be? Is it the first 3 years of your capital plan and a percentage of the future years? There's many different ways that we can be looking at it and how, what that stability looks like in the future. I'm not sure I can give you a definitive answer as to what that optimal balance should be right now, but it definitely should be higher, significantly higher than what we are carrying.
Yeah, I didn't expect that you could necessarily provide a number. I guess the order of magnitude of how far off we are from what would be considered like a healthy reserve balance. If yeah, I guess maybe that is something that we'll get better clarity on numbers wise. But I mean, if we're putting roughly 2 million away each year, but really a healthy reserve balance in like a 5-year plan is actually 4 million, like I think that would be good information to really think about while we're doing this process. And I understand that the reserves are not optimal, but I'm just not clear how far off that is. So I think that's something I'd like to understand better. And then subsequent to that, on the slide that has the expenses, I don't know what, maybe 14, it says 14 out of 42 on my, there is our transfer to reserve line 2025 versus 2026, and it's showing that it's 23.7% less. And I'm just wondering if staff could expand on why that, where that change comes from and why.
The change is coming from the surplus from last year.
Okay.
So that's the unallocated surplus that was transferred to the reserve last year.
Oh, okay. So that number will change when we incorporate the variance. Okay, that's great. Thanks for that.
All right. I'm looking around and not seeing any questions in the room, and I don't see any further online. So we're up. McCollum, that's the same hand, but I see a fresh question, at least according to your face. So go for it.
Thanks. Sorry, I thought I can't tell if there's lights on. So yeah, I just had another general comment, which I mean, I think I've brought this up in previous years, and we did get an appendix to this report kind of breaking down revenue projections, which I thought was really detailed and helpful. Although it didn't compare back to 2025, which makes me feel like it's a little harder to see where we were versus where we're going. But something that I have a concern about, and I find it's hard to flush out from the process that we're doing, is that, organics to me is quite a bit different than our other service of landfilling. One's diversion, the other one isn't. And the tipping fees from organics as a line item in that appendix look very similar to what the expenses are. But there's also other line items in that breakdown of tipping fees that look to me like, and I realize this isn't in the presentation because we got it as a separate appendix, but this seems like the best time to bring it up. There's also other things in this list that I believe are organics as well. We've got, you know, just a little over 1.2 million from municipal, but then there's an organics other listed as 150,000. And then yard waste and then yard waste minimum, those two add up to another 350,000. And then there's also revenue listed earlier or in the more detailed slides around soil sales, which is another 180,000. So I guess my challenge here is I'm not really quite sure what the revenues are for organics versus the expenses. And I think that is information that the board should be clear about. I from my math, and it's based on a bunch of assumptions, because I'm not clear if that all falls under the organic service, that our revenues are, you know, probably 40% more than what the expenses are. And to me, that looks like we're, you know, maybe using some of our diversion to cover some of the expenses in other aspects of the service, which I mean, that's a policy decision, but I just think it should be clear that if that is in fact what we're accomplishing with organics tipping fees, that we should be fairly clear that that's what we're doing. And it also makes me wonder, because in 2028 there's a planned tipping fee increase for organics, if that's needed or not. And it's just hard to flesh out from the way that we're receiving this information that the revenues for the entire service land kind of in one area. So just, I don't know if staff can clarify if my assumptions around what's included in the organic service and whether or not we are in fact collecting more revenue than the 1.2 million of expenses that we're seeing in the budget report.
Certainly, if Vivian or Kelly want to be able to try to summarize what it is that's in the appendix, I will note sort of the addendum to the report.
Oh, yeah.
And the board may want to consider receiving that addendum before going further with this particular item. I will say though, I think if I can understand the concern correctly, we can certainly come back to elaborate more fully on the revenue side of 394. So the slide that we're on right now is the expenses side for 394 organics. And I think what you're asking for, Director McCollum, is to have a similar slide for revenue on 394 only, and as opposed to rolling up all of the revenue under solid waste as a whole. The addendum item starts to get to those, provides pieces of that information, but to see it specifically for the organics, I think that's what you're asking for. And we can certainly do that for the January meeting. We will do that for the January meeting, but I'll also ask if Vivian or Kelly are able to elaborate further on your specific questions.
Thank you so much. And to James's comment, we will definitely have that sussed out a bit better so that you can discern between the 391 revenue budget as compared to 394, which really is supposed to be a standalone cost recovery subfunction. So you are correct for the organics municipal contract. So this is that line item for the 1.27 million. That is the revenue that's generated from the collection of curbside organics from the four member municipalities: Campbell River, Cumberland, Comox, and Courtney. And the organics other, that's a new line item that we introduced last year. And this is to account for the others. That's not incorporated under that municipal contract line. So these are things like the pilot programs that we're doing at Costco, as we look to onboard schools, some of the multifamilies. That's the line item for that. For the yard waste, the bottom two line items that you're seeing, that is material that's actually processed on site. Sorry, not processed on site. Some of it goes to our biosolids facility. That's one of the feedstock to be able to blend it into their Skyrocket materials. And then there is a cheaper option going to one of the wood processing facility here in Courtney. And these are materials that are self-hauled to the facilities directly. So those don't go to the organics facility up in Campbell River. That's processed separately at a lower cost, so we can reduce the amount of material that's being trucked back and forth. And also just to preserve the space at the organics facility for the material that needs to be flowing through that, because there is that food waste component that can't be processed elsewhere. And then on the revenue side, I do want to just highlight, so we did generate roughly about, I think, $130,000 last year from the sale of organics. And then with the projected increases, we're looking at roughly about just over 11,000 tons of material coming through for the organics. At the updated tipping fee rate, we're going to be generating roughly about 185,000. On the expenses side, as I highlighted, it's highlighted in the slide. There is material that is what we consider overs, as well as the contaminants, and that is a big portion of the increase that you're seeing. So there is tipping fee that is coming. There's tipping fees that's incurred for the materials that's coming back down from Campbell River that can't be reintroduced back into the process, resulting in the tipping fee, and then there's the hauling component. So the adjustment that we have updated for the tipping fees is so that we are on a cost recovery basis, but I can certainly provide a very succinct chart to be able to articulate that and summarize that a bit better for the next round.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. And CEO, you want to make a comment on this?
Yeah, just that this is not the first time this question's been asked, and this more detailed information's been asked for by the board. So, and it is work that is part of our planned work for the next cycle. So what I'm going to commit to is work with staff, and in your financial planning policy, if it isn't explicit that this kind of detail is part of this process, then we'll bring back an update to that policy. That said, it'll be part of the 2027 to 31 financial planning process as well. So we'll get this information to you at the outset of your financial planning process.
Okay, thanks, CEO. That would be appreciated going forward, that consistent presentation. There's a question in the room from Director Mwini, and after that, we'll go to Director Chapman online.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the very comprehensive information that you presented to us today. I have a question about, I guess it's page 22, and it's around the capital plan, and specifically, I'm curious about some of the planned expenses for transfer stations. Interested in them because it's something that people on Quadra Island have been advocating for. And I was noticing that it seems like there's quite a lot of difference in cost between the transfer station, for instance, that's planned for Tassis with a total of $1 million, and then the one that's for Zabalis, which is going to be $1.5 million over 2 years. And I was curious if there were reasons for those cost differences, whether it was because it was planned further in the future, so there was an estimate that costs will be increasing, or if it was a distance, or if there were some other factors. And thank you.
These were high-level costs that we have done in terms of just projecting out what it could look like. We haven't done any of the detailed design or engineering associated with this, nor the consultation. So yeah, these are pretty rudimentary numbers so that we can just have something to work with. With the additional, the 200,000 is more or less so that we can start the design work. But we'll be able to better refine those numbers as we work closer to formalizing what that plan's going to look like based on the needs of the community. I'll have to flesh out the Sabalis one a bit closer. I don't have an exact answer for you right this second. I'm just noticing that it is a bit significantly higher in 2027. And I don't think that is in alignment with what we had planned for. So I will get back to you on that.
Okay, thanks, Vivian. And you'll get back to us. And so I believe that we need to finish receipt on this and receive the addendum. I know, I wasn't sure if we needed that before. And just to get the addendum we were discussing before. So can we dispense with receipt on this, on the capital plan? And could I get a motion to receive the addendum number 1? Okay, any objections to receiving addendum number 1? Okay, great. So that's just now officially before us. And thank you for your patience, Director Chapman. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I have two, one statement, one question. The statement is, I agree with Director McCollum that showing expenses without the revenues is in an incomplete picture. And I found it frustrating not to have the full vision of that service. To the question, when we look at the anticipated future costs of landfill closures and so forth, is that in current value or is that future value? Because that will have if it's not future value, that may change the status of the reserves. And in other words, it may show that the reserves are even more inadequate than what's shown. So is it future value we're looking at, or is it current value?
So I assume you're talking about the 19.9 million, the ARO landfill liability for the closures. So that is, so what they do with it, it's under the accounting standards, is the costs are taken out to the future and then brought back to today's dollars. So the 19.9 million is what it would cost today if we had to close the landfills for any reason. As we move out to the future, of course, there's always rate changes and interest rate changes, as well as inflation and that. So there's something called an accretion expense. And that accretion expense is added annually based on what is happening with the rates. So in 2024, the ARO was just over $18 million, and there was an annual accretion expense of 800 and I forget exactly what it was, 860,000, I believe, that is added to it to bring it up to the 19.9 million shown in our statements as of December 31st, 2024.
Thank you. So you're using future value.
It is future value discounted back to today's dollars, what it would actually cost you today to close it. You know, and the closure costs are, I believe they're brought out just over 30 years for the length of the closure activities that we have to perform.
Dr. Chapman, do you want to follow up on that?
No, thank you, Chair. It's I think there's some work to be done there, but I won't elaborate. We have other things that we need to get to.
All right. Okay. Thanks very much. I'm not seeing any further. Sorry, Vivian, did you want to make a further statement? Okay, that's cool. All right. So no further questions by directors at this point that I see. We've dispensed with receipt. There is a recommendation if anyone cares to move it. All right. And any question or commentary on the recommendation? And
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick comment. I really have to comment how useful it was having the PowerPoint in the agenda today to be able to go through such a detailed one. So I just want to thank staff for making that happen. It is really well appreciated. Thank you.
all right, and I'll also extend a big thanks, as always, to Budget Time staff for the work that went into all of this. And I think we're on the cusp of approving it. We'll see how that goes. So anyone opposed to the recommendation? Not seeing any. That carries. And thanks again, staff. Really appreciate this. So our next item is the third quarter budget update and variance report, which would thank you. I could pass that to our CA.
Thank you very much. And again, Kelly Broughton will be introducing this report, though much of it was part of the previous report on the financial planning process. So Kelly, over to you.
Thanks, James. Through the CAO to the directors, staff are here to update the 2025 third quarter variance financial results. This report is provided for information only, and it's to help inform the 2026 proposed budget. The quarterly variance reports will become part of the effort to strengthen the financial oversight and reporting back to the board. And the reviews will also help staff to identify issues early and support better informed long-term financial planning. So the results to date, we are projecting an operating surplus of 1.17 million or 5.8% of the approved 2025 $20.6 million budget. This is still very preliminary as the 2025 year is still in progress, and some of the funds relate to ongoing initiatives that will probably remain in progress at the end of the year. The main drivers of the projected surplus are 825,000 in higher than anticipated tipping fee revenue, which is in part due to increased waste volumes. And there was $113,000 in compost sales that were not included in the 2025 budget. And there's 381,000 overall in savings from other expenditures, mainly in the contracted and general services categories. And out of that 1.17, 347,000 is initially identified for initiatives to be carried forward into 2026. While the surplus seems large, the complexity and scale of the service should be measured against it. The operating results, the total revenue is projected to exceed the budget by 755,000, while the expenditures are projected to be 413,000 under budget. So as mentioned, the revenue variances are mainly derived from the higher than expected weight volumes and the compost sales that were not included in the budget. So that resulted in an overall increase of 825, and this is partially offset by shortfalls in scrap metal recoveries. So it settles at approximately $755,000 total. The expense variances are mostly due to delays resulting from staffing capacities, lower contract and equipment rental costs, and deferred training and travel costs. However, the costs of safety equipment were higher than expected to offset that. So 347,000 of the surplus is projected to be carried forward for the automated wellheads, disaster relief planning, AI website integration, the signage program, operator training, and the fuel and vehicle wash stations. And they will be integrated into the recommended budget. On the capital side, the approved 2025 capital plan was 7.16 million, which included 3.7 million in carry forward projects from 2024. Of the 17 approved projects, 9 are still projected to be in progress at the end of December, including the Oyster River Recycling Center, the automated wellheads at both sites, the office building at the Comox Valley Center, the Fortis connection infrastructure, and the Campbell River landfill closure. When the actual 2025 year-end results are known, staff will incorporate the carry forwards into the recommended plan in January, along with the recommendation to use any of the unallocated surplus to establish a rate stabilization reserve to offset future uncertainties. Staff will bring forward the recommendations as part of the ongoing fiscal framework development. And this concludes the update. Thank you, and staff are available for questions.
Great, thanks, Kelly. Not seeing any questions on that update, although I am seeing one. Director McCollum.
Sorry, unmuting on this thing is causing me problems today. Yeah, just a question on the additional tipping fee revenue, much like my previous question. Is that mostly associated with solid waste, or is some of that made up of organics?
I don't have the exact breakdown right now. I believe it was just overall a mix of it. You're talking about the 755,000 or the 113? Sorry.
I think it was 712,000 was the breakdown of the 712,000 can be attributed to an increase in the volume of
Yeah.
waste processed. So I was just curious if that's solid waste, or if some of that was made up, if we received more organics than we anticipated last year.
So it was pretty much right across the board with all categories. There's higher volumes in just about every category that we have, including organics. We can get you the exact breakdown for the next meeting if you would like.
That sounds like that would be helpful. And it sounds like this is a consistent trend that it really would be helpful to have that breakdown in tipping fees. And I hope that's just a note that we can take forward in terms of clarity of reports. It just gives us additional information that's valuable. At this point, I'm not seeing any further questions. We're just on receipt. So is there anyone opposed to receipt? And that carries. And next we're at the resolution status report. Thank you very much. That's on receipt. Any questions on the report? I'm not seeing any. Anyone opposed to receipt? And that carries. And then we'll move into bylaws and resolutions. Bylaw number 889, CSWM service tipping fee and solid waste disposal regulation bylaw number. Thank you very much. Moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? Anyone opposed? And that carries. And bylaw number 892, ticketing bylaw for final adoption. Okay, let's move and seconded. Any questions, comments? Anyone opposed? And that carries. We're on to the addendums. We've already had the projected tipping fees. And so if I flip over, the next addendum is CSWM feedback for the Village of Cumberland official community plan and zoning bylaws. Okay. And I'll pass it over to our CAO. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the board for considering this as an addendum item. The turnaround on timing is quite tight in terms of being able to comment on this particular referral from the Village of Cumberland. And I want to commend our staff and working with the Village of Cumberland staff to be able to facilitate this this report for you. Vivian Shaw is able to provide some context around it, and the recommendation you can see is noted there. So Vivian, over to you.
Thank you so much. This, as James noted, this is related to the Village of Cumberland's release of the referral of their draft zoning bylaw and their draft OCP referral that was received last week, following first and second reading from last Monday. In this time, we've reviewed it, and staff has noted that there are a few things around the zoning, specifically that restricts the northern parcel of the land that we purchased we purchased back in 2021, and with the intention of supporting future infrastructure under the proposed within the solid waste management plan work. There are also identification of some conflicts and inconsistencies within the OCP that in the mapping that we wanted to address as well. So the report outlines some of the items that would benefit from some clarity to safeguard the service's long-term interests and the current operational requirements of our site, and looking further out, the alignment to our solid waste management plan, as well as in alignment with the village's vision for their area, for their community. So we're seeking board authorization to pen a letter from our board to the village, following a complete legal review and incorporating those findings before we submit the final comments to the village. And again, thank you so much for a consideration for adding this onto the agenda at such late notice. But just given the timelines, there is a lot of challenges given the substantive nature and impactfulness of these documents, land use documents. I'm just going to really briefly go through some of our kind of primary concerns and outlining those risks to the service. Number one is the service continuity and potential for future expansion. It is really about our ability to achieve those solid waste management plan goals. And with construction and demolition waste being a significant portion of the waste that is landfilled, this plan work was anticipated for that parcel that we purchased back in 2021. And the zoning for I3, specifically for that area, there's a footnote in there. The way that it reads, it has the potential to limit recycling activities to enclosed buildings, and that is not possible with the construction and demolition waste. So it is that necessary outdoor processing and staging component is critical to what we're wanting to be able to achieve. And we want to be able to just provide some clarity on what's explicitly permitted use. And so that we can avoid future potentially costly implications with this unclear zoning. The second risk is the continuity of our current core service, such as things like equipment repair and fueling. These core activities are currently only protected by legal non-conforming status, which is a very limited safeguard based on our initial review with our planning department. So with this status, this prohibits any future expansion, and it could, based on the LGA, it would appear that it could be revoked if there is use, if the use is discontinued or for 6 consecutive months. So it wouldn't happen, but we just wanted to highlight some of these vulnerabilities to the service. And then finally, for the OCP, we just again wanted to really highlight and thank the collaboration with the Village of Cumberland. They have been working with us to involve us in the process at the onset. And we were able to secure a favorable policy inclusion into the draft OCP, which is specifically around the 500 meter, the inclusion of the 500 meter buffer around the landfill, and as well as the landfill height. We just noted that there were a couple of notable mapping errors. So we just wanted to make sure that we highlight those so that they don't come up in future DPA considerations. Yeah, with that, available for any questions.
All right, and I just want to say thank you very much for the quick turnaround on this OCP review. I know it was received, I guess, a week ago in the bylaws, less than that. So I appreciate you having this ready in time for our meeting today. And I'll turn it over to Director Therrien from Cumberland. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Vivian, for bringing this forward. I just wanted to make a few comments. I've talked to our staff, Courtney, last night and this morning. The OCP fixes aren't going to be any problem at all. Yep, she agrees with that. Just for the zoning, when we did our zoning update, an update to the zoning of the landfill site wasn't part of the scope of the zoning. So they have directly transferred the existing zoning into the new zoning document. So this is status quo. Nothing has changed as we move forward. As you pointed out, all non-conforming uses are grandfathered in, for lack of a better word, and that will continue. There is a planned housekeeping, because this is a completely new zoning document, there's a planned housekeeping of this document for late 2026, when we'll iron out any other problems. And that will be a great time for the CVRD and the Waste Management Service to bring forward any concerns with the zoning, and an opportunity and plenty of time for staff to work out all of these other issues. Yeah, so I just wanted to pass on those comments from our staff.
Nice. Thanks very much, Director Tiernan. It's good to hear that. A lot of effective and fast-paced collaboration there between the local governments. So not seeing any further comments. We're on receipt currently. Anyone opposed to receipt? That carries, and there is a recommendation. Thank you very much. Any debate? Anyone opposed? And that carries, and we have one remaining item, which is from Director Vinesh. And we've already added it to the agenda. So, CEO, I think you had a comment you wanted to make just to lead off this.
Yeah, only this, and Director Vinesh, I'm curious what the item is, and certainly board will receive that. I would say though, if staff are available to assist in putting materials onto your letterhead, then can come to a board agenda, and that provides then opportunity for the board to have more full understanding of the item at hand, and may allow for a quicker processing or turnaround in terms of actions to follow. So to all the directors, we're available if you want to reach out prior to meetings and place items of interest onto your letterhead and then onto the agenda for the board to give consideration to. So with that, Chair.
And I'll hand it over to you, Director Vinesh.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, James, for those comments. Apologies for bringing this to the board at such late notice. It's a kind of an emerging issue on Cortez, and hoping to keep it quick. The basic issues, I've recently received a lot of feedback around the state of the road going into the Cortez Waste Management Center. And I've since gone to check it out myself, and there are parts of the road where there basically isn't a road, where people are driving on bedrock. There's a section of the road that floods at least once a year, and there's, I'm hearing stories of waste management staff having to actually pull people out when they've gotten stuck during these flooding times. So just wanting to bring that to the attention of staff. I'm sure you have some awareness of that already, but also make sure that it can get onto our budget for next year to make sure that it gets fixed. And my sort of understanding of the fix is that it's needing some another layer added to the road, and there's one section that needs a culvert. And I do have a motion to make once there's discussion or feedback from staff. Thank you.
Feedback from staff, and Vivian, I noticed you turned your light on, so please go ahead if you have comments in response.
Yeah, thank you so much for the raising that. It is an operational issue that we work quite closely with Aaron on, the operator at the Cortez site. We do regularly move crush to maintain that road, and we can definitely work with you, and Aaron to address those. And in the meantime, I can also provide Jesse's contact information as well, so that we can iron some of these out, given that these are operational issues. But what we did, I'll take definitely, I've tucked in some notes down in regards to what that would look like if there is anything that arises, and for consideration into the recommended budget.
Thanks, Vivian. And I was just consulting with our CAO, and just mark just for future, that would be an operational staff to staff conversation that could happen. It doesn't necessarily need to be brought to the board, but this certainly got it on staff's radar. And this Director Arbor, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I can empathize with Dr. Vanish. I've been trying to make a couple of improvements on Hornby as well, but for clarity, because I can't recall, I should know this, but on Hornby, the facility is actually owned and by the Resident Ratepayers Association. And so whenever there's amounts of money that are put into capital, it doesn't come from this service. Only Hornby residents pay for it. So I'm wondering if staff can clarify whether on Cortez is the same model, or whether the facility is actually owned by the service and therefore all capital costs are shared by all of us.
Thanks for the question. You are correct. The Cortez facility is a very different model as compared to the Hornby facility, Hornby service. As part of the existing systems review that we've compiled as part of the solid waste management plan, there is glaring disparity between the two services. But yes, you are correct. The Cortez facility is part of the solid waste the Comox Strathcona Regional, Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service asset, and funded out of 391.
Yeah, that's great. I'll be supportive of Dr. Vanish, but I think with his can of worms, he opened a new one for me. So we'll get back to that in the future. Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks. And I don't believe that any motion is required. It sounds like that's Vivian Shaw has that in hand. And yeah, so I guess just receipt of the report. Anyone opposed to receipt? That carries, and that takes us to the end of our agenda. If someone wants to move termination. Okay, I'm sure no one's opposed. Thanks very much for your time today, friends. All right, bye-bye.